Fuck it, we're gonna be live with another game. I just ended up finishing my latest Phobos game, and you know what? Everyone's made a goddamn tier list on YouTube, so I figure why not sell out and do one also. I've watched a lot of people do tier lists on here talking about the meta after the latest balance status slate, and I would say I agree somewhat with some decisions, and I disagree with other decisions. I want to talk about, we're going to do some speculation on the two upcoming teams with the Hearthkin Salvagers and the Goatmen. So we'll talk about those. Oh yeah, Necrons, you belong here. So as you can see, I put a lot of effort into creating this tier list. And by effort, I mean I logged on and just named all the A, B, C, D tiers and my own opinion of things. And then we threw all the compendium teams into the does not exist pile. So that might piss some people off. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like compendium. I don't consider it part of Kill Team. If that's something that offends you, I'm sorry. It's not the same game. They're not balanced the same way. In fact, they're not balanced at all at this point. I can't even remember the last time I've seen compendium updated. Lots of people have talked about this. If you're upset at my opinion on compendium, it's probably because your team hasn't been updated yet. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, just wait. You know what I mean? Pretty much every team that's been replaced has ended up better. So look forward to that. Especially now that Kasrkin's not complete trash now. So, without further ado, let's get in and start this. So, as you can see by my beautiful tier list, my voice is okay, good. You guys can hear me. Okay, so we got best of the game, S tier. I'm not considering S tier specifically in need of a nerf. I think there's always going to be an S tier in a game, regardless of the power level. So things that I put in S tier, I don't think are necessarily broken. I'm just simply stating I think they are the best teams in the game. Below that, you have no complaints. So these are going to be teams that honestly are just overall strong. They might not be at the same level as S tier is as far as power, but they pretty much do what's on the box when you pick up the team. They don't have any really bad matchups, and they can play the mission well. Next, tryhards will say they're good, but they're not. So these are teams that you go onto Discord and you go into the little faction channels, and there's always that one or two guys in the faction channel that swear by this team and think that they're the greatest shit ever and that people just haven't realized it. So they're wrong. I just want to emphasize that. All right? You can like your team and you could be successful with your team. Good on you. That doesn't make them a good team. I think more people need to hear that. Next, this is not a good team. That's C tier. You could still win games with the C tier team. It's possible. I don't know. What is up with my fucking language lately? I think it's just because I'm tired. Possible. I don't even live on the East Coast and sound like an idiot from there. Just kidding. I've been outside of the U.S. for a while, so I'm not talking shit on the East Coast guys. Anyways, these are bad teams. You can win with them, but they're still bad. They usually have some really horrible matchups that are basically an auto-lose, or maybe they struggle scoring, or a combination of the two, or maybe they just end up being weak, as in they can't deal damage, or everything. So, that's my tier list. Let's get started. So, right off the bat, we have clowns. A lot of people throw clowns and pretty much everything on this category except for, I would say, C tier. I would say you never see clowns C tier since this game's been out. Clowns are here. They always have been. People think they drop in power level, but I would argue that the amount of players just drops with this team. This team has been infamously lethal since they came out. They score tac ops really well. Their equipment's really good. Their operatives are really good. They're good at shooting. They're good at melee. Nothing stops them in terrain. They just absolutely slaughter things into the dark and open play. There's no downside to this team whatsoever. Oh, whoops. Sorry. This is the Compendium Clowns. They don't exist. This is the team I was talking about. Oh, I think we forgot to put orcs in there too. Anyways, there's no downside to playing this team. Do I think they're overpowered? Yes. Yes, I do. The thing that I think is broken about this team is Jest. Sagorok's Jest. I think it just creates too big of a safety net for clowns. I think, honestly, Sagorok's Jest should work for one operative. I would nerf it. I would nerf it to one operative. I couldn't give two fucks about Domino Field. I think people focus too much about Domino Field as far as thinking of nerfing the team. I don't care about it at all. In fact, here's an opinion that I think is not going to be a popular one. I don't think Domino Field was broken to begin with. I think the original Domino Field was fine. Yeah, was it annoying for people? Absolutely. Oh God, yes. But I don't think that's what broke the team. I think you had to change your play style up and play against them, but that's not what broke the team. What broke the team was Sagorok's Jest. And probably Prismatic Blur. But I think Prismatic Blur is not as big a deal as Sagorok's Jest is. So why is this strat fucking broken? So basically, let's say you're a Weapon Skill 3 operative. Okay? Normally, going into an 8 wound operative, as with a melee operative, you're probably going to kill it if you charge it, because most melee operatives in the game are base 4 damage. That's not always true, but let's just generalize here. Most melee operatives in the game are base 4 damage, right? So that means if you move in, usually you have 4 to 5 hits. You're probably killing the 8 wound guy on the second hit, right? I think we can all assume that. Well, Sagorok's Jest just says, fuck you. Because assuming you're a Weapon Skill 3 guy, all they have to do is roll a 3 or less. There is a 50% chance that a Weapon Skill 3 operative just parries a hit away. And then they die because the clown has 5 attacks. Now, you could say to me, oh, well, it doesn't work on crits. And you're right. It has been nerfed since it's been out. But it still fucks up the math enough that you can't punish a clown player that overextends. It's not a guarantee that you're going to kill them. Unless you can guarantee crits, you're going to have a chance where you just don't roll crits. And guess who fucking dies when you don't roll a crit? You do. Which is why Hand of the Archon actually is so good into clowns. I don't know what other people experience when they play Hand of the Archon and the clowns, but I have not lost a single game versus clowns with Hand of the Archon. And actually, to further accentuate that, most of the games that I've played versus clowns with Hand of the Archon have been complete blowouts, because Hand of the Archon is the only team in the game that can guarantee critical hits. And as soon as you reach that point where the clown player is not able to really use Sagorok's Jest, you just rinse the team. So it needs to get nerfed. It needs to be nerfed because Void Dancer players need to play more, not risky, the opposite of risky. They need to play more conservatively and start focusing their efforts in one part of the board instead of having the entire team just spread out over the map and just try and kill everything and just rely on dice rolls. Because right now the team relies on dice rolls, right? If you don't roll hot, your team will just fall over and die. And I think that's where you see a lot of clown players go, well, what are you talking about? We're not durable. I have an 8 wound team. that's only 8 wounds. Yeah, I have a 4+ save, but like that only saves half the time. My guys will die. And it's like, well, yeah. Have you tried not rolling bad? If you roll hot with this team, you don't lose the game. That's just the plain and simple fact of them. They're a really good team. Let's move on, or else I'm going to stay here all night. Vet Guard. Vet Guard are S tier. They always have been. I don't know why people started putting them lower, but they've always been S tier. My main theory of why they've kind of fallen off the radar is because all of the good players that got famous playing Vet Guard got bored of them and just started playing other teams. Which, I mean, fair enough. It means that, Vet Guard are not, showing up as often as they used to. But they're still just busted as fuck. They're a really good team. The Spotter needs to get nerfed to be more in line with all the other reveal abilities. It's way too strong for what it does on a single operative. But other than that, I wouldn't say there's really anything necessarily broken with the team except the fucking Sniper, which always rolls 2 6s when I fight him. And the guy does like 6 to 9 mortal wounds in whatever he shoots at, and it drives me insane. But then again, counterpoint, when I play Vet Guard, my Sniper does the same thing, so maybe I shouldn't complain. They're a really good team. They're 14 operatives. They have the highest APL economy in the game? ? I think that's still a thing. I'm pretty sure they still have the highest in the game. I might be incorrect on that now. There might be another team that has higher, but regardless, they're in the top 3, right? They just have everything. They have high AP. They have melee operatives that are decent in damage. They have numbers. They have good tac ops. There's just nothing bad about this team. Okay? All right, so let's go. Commandos are a little bit boring to talk about, but I think everyone knows where Commandos are right now. That's why they're a little boring to talk about. There's really nothing I have to put in with these guys. They're very consistent in what they do. Everyone knows what they can do. They were recently buffed in the last White Dwarf, so now if you take the Grot, you get the Squig also. I don't think that changes anything. They're fine. One thing that I will say to you Commando players, start taking Seek and Destroy, goddammit. Like, I still see Commando players taking Infiltrate, and then they're just like, well, I don't get it, man. Like, yeah, I got Implant. I understand how to do that, but like, I don't know what else to do with them. Like, I always feel like I end up scoring like 2 to 4 points on tac ops, and it's like, bro, you've got another archetype. It's called Seek and Destroy. It's the best archetype in the game. Just take Rout, Rob and Ransack, and eliminate guards, and you'll probably max your tac ops. You could even add in Shock Tactics if you really want to. Play Seek and Destroy. It's really good. Commandos are a fine team. This is going to be today's first controversial opinion. I don't think Hunter Clade is as good as people say they are right now. I think the nerf to the team hit them really hard. I think they're at a point in the game where we're in an elite meta right now, and they just kind of bounce off of elites. I think the nerfs to damage reduction didn't really affect them at all, because most of their damage is 4. So they're still getting damage reduction into like the top teams in the game, like Breachers, Intercession, Legionnaires, like a lot of those really durable teams. They're still murdered by damage reduction. You, like a perfect example, going into the Legionnaires matchup with this team, you were relying on rolling multiple crits with your Ruststalkers. If you don't roll multiple crits, like let's say you only roll like a crit, there's a pretty good chance you die. If you roll no crits, you're fucked. So they have really bad matchups. Their gunners are okay, but they're really difficult to position. and more often than not don't really have access to reliable rerolls. I don't necessarily think that the team's bad, but I don't think that they're a good team. And I think really skilled players will say that they're a good team, but here's my counterpoint to that. They're just fucking good players. They'll probably be good on most of the teams they play. I don't think this team's doing them any favors, and that's why they're B tier. Alright, Warp Coven, I don't think anyone's going to argue this. If ever there was a team on this tier list that feels like you are working your ass off to play a mediocre game, it's probably Warp Coven. There's so many tricks and everything that you have to play in order to do what everybody else does. And that's a really depressing thing because the team is a very fun team to play. I've won tournaments with them. I've played a lot of games with them. They were a lot stronger prior to the Crit Ops update because they played security really well. They played recon really well, and then you could kind of manipulate your dice or your tac op deck into drawing the cards you want with schemes of change, and it was a really fun mechanic. I think they're pretty good on Into the Dark. I should preface this by saying that I don't really consider Into the Dark part of the game. I know a lot of tournaments and events use it, but in my opinion, Into the Dark is just a completely separate game from what Kill Team is. Like, they're both Kill Team, okay, sure. But, like, base Kill Team is so incredibly different from Into the Dark that it's like, you just can't lump the two together. You got to do either open or Into the Dark. So, I think Warp Coven's really good in Into the Dark. I think they're not a bad team. You're more than capable of winning games with this team, but I don't think they're a good team. Sisters. So, Sisters, I don't think have any issues with the meta right now. I think okay, I don't really have much to say about this team. Why are they not S tier? Because I see some people putting them in S tier now. I don't think Sisters are in S tier because I don't think they have good tac ops. I think they have trouble scoring on the map. I think they have the Superior who's got the plasma, and that's pretty good, but I do think it's possible to play around her. And I think they really kind of start to struggle as soon as you get into like the mid-tier teams. I think they're really good into elites, but I think mid-tier teams can give them a hard time, and I think horde teams can also give them a hard time. Yeah, I know they have the flamers, but you have to think about the fact that like with Sisters, you have like 3, possibly 4 power pieces on your team, and then the rest of your team is kind of just like people that do things. You know what I mean? They're just like, they're either buffing the power pieces or they're going and doing mission stuff. So if you lose like a couple of those power pieces, it hurts real bad. So that's probably why I wouldn't put them in S, but I mean, still being in A tier, I think they're really solid. I think they, I just don't have any complaints with the team. I think they do what they want to do, but they're just not at the same level as S. All right. Oh, also the organization within the tiers has no bearing. Okay. Because it's just all a matter of preference at that point. Pathfinders. So, I don't think anyone really thinks these guys actually are supposed to have a 30% win rate. I think the good players that used to play Pathfinders are not playing them. Or there just isn't enough Pathfinders players to counteract the fact that most of the Pathfinders players are playing into the dark for some reason and trying to make them work. But once you get them in open, they do the same thing that they did when they first came out, and that's to shoot stuff and kill stuff, and they're still pretty fucking good at that. They've got high mobility, they've got good shooting, they've got good tac ops, they've got a high number of operatives. They're relatively durable if you play them well. Like, the team is just super good. They just murder the shit out of the other S tier teams, including clowns. No complaints there. We're going to put them here. I'm going to put them here. Wyrmblade. Wyrmblade is a good team, but they're not a good team. And I know I'm contradicting myself when I say that, but what I mean by that is you can have games with Wyrmblade where it feels like they're the best team in the game. And that feels amazing, right? You'll have a game where, you know, you'll get your ambush thing off, or you'll kill like half the team, or you completely blindside somebody with like a locust play, and end up killing like 2 or 3 operatives and then piling into like another 2 operatives, and like, you know, all this weird stuff happens and you just win the game within 2 turns. That's all said and good. Why are they not better? The reason why they're not better is they actually don't play the mission very well. They don't have access to really good tac ops. Like, you can go seek and destroy with them, and that's fine. But I think they kind of struggle with seek and destroy a lot. And then their other option is infiltration. Infiltration is by far the weakest tac op archetype in the game. Not even a country mile. So these guys, I think, there's a couple things that they really struggle with. First of all, they don't have any access to APL 3 operatives outside of the agents. The agents are good, but awkward. The Kellermorph is, honestly, there's this, he's flawless. There's nothing wrong with the Kellermorph at all. It's, in fact, I don't think there's ever been a game where a Genestealer Cult player has ever not taken the Kellermorph. Someone's probably going to comment and be like, oh, I used him in a casual game. It was a 3v3, and, you know, we had a lot of fun, and I used the Sanctus Sniper and the Sanctus Melee guy. And it's like, congratulations, dude. Realistically speaking, you never leave home without the Kellermorph. He's really good, right? Your next options are the Locust Sniper or the Sanctus Sniper or the Locust, right? Just forget the melee Sanctus exists, because no one uses them. They're both okay operatives, but I think the game's evolved since they came out. The Sanctus Sniper's a little awkward to use. There's going to be some times where he feels like the most overpowered guy on the map, but most of the time he's going to be really awkward to use because of his gun being heavy and the fact that he has to use another ability to really get all the effects out of his sniper. He's got 2 abilities, one to go lethal 5 up, the other to go ignore obscuring and ignore cover. So total, if you want to use all of your abilities, you're looking at using 3 APL just to do that. And that feels like shit. I think if I were to buff him, I probably would have just put ignore obscuring baseline, and then I would have probably given him like some kind of like harness, like a suspensor suit, because it doesn't really make sense for his sniper to be heavy, because lore-wise, he's just using a dart gun. His sniper isn't even actually like a heavy sniper rifle. It's literally just like a tranquilizer gun with like some like explosive serum in it. So it just doesn't make sense for his gun to be heavy. Moving on to the Locust. The Locust used to be a scary as fuck man. That guy would just cause terror everywhere. But now, like, melee operatives have really evolved in the past year, and he's just really not that big a deal now. Like, if you compare him to, like, intercessors, look at him and just be like, okay, dude, sweet, what's up? You know, Legionnaires look at the guy, feel the same way. It's like there's a lot of armies or teams in the game that kind of look into him and go, okay, well, you're good, but like I've seen scarier. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where the team falls. Like, they're not a bad team, but they've just kind of aged out of the top of the meta, in my opinion. Corsairs. Corsairs have been consistently an A+ team. They're just really good, and they've never moved anywhere. They were recently buffed with their Shredder getting Rending, which is really good. Their Alpha Strike is probably the best in the game outside of. No, I would say yeah, it's the best in the game. Hierotek might be trying to come at them though. I have nothing bad to say about this team. Why are they not S tier? So there's a few things that keep this team out of S tier. I think mostly being a lack of dice manipulation. Realistically, their only way to get dice manipulation is to take outcasts, which is a very good stratagem, but it's very awkward to use because you have to be 6 inches away from another operative on the team, and that ends up being really hard. Except for like forward deploying guys or like towards the end of the game. So that's what keeps them out of S tier. It's just like dice dependent teams outside of Harlequins. I just don't think really make the cut as being the best teams in the game. So A's still really good though. Like I said, no complaints on the team. In fact, they're probably still my favorite kill team in the game. All right, moving on. Legionnaires. So prior to the damage reduction thing, I would put them in S tier. They're knocked down to A. Okay, damage reduction still really good. It still saves them in matchups, but they can get chip damage now, and I think as more anti-elite teams start coming in, you'll start to see these guys getting pushed a little bit down. I don't ever think they'll go down to here, but they're definitely going to get pushed into like a little bit more obscurity. So enough said. Blooded, B. Why do I think Blooded are B? I think there was some cute stuff you could do with them in Into the Dark, but as soon as you get an open play, like they've always had this problem where their shooting's not really that good, right? They have the Blooded tokens. I get it, okay? I get the Blooded tokens are like statistically the same as rerolling ones or whatever somebody has been trying to explain to me on Discord. I get it, okay? But it still fucking sucks when you don't really have any stratagems that are really good for the team. Except for probably like the Eye of the Gods. I forget what that one's called. The one that gives you +1 APL when you have Eye of the Gods on. That one's a really good one. The shoot into combat's really good. The bodyguard strat's really good. But their strategic ploys are pretty dog shit. The operatives themselves are alright. Like, the melee is pretty solid, but their shooting is just not great. And I think that keeps them out. Moving on. Phobos. I'm being extra sneaky because they're a sneaky team. These guys are S tier now. I've been playing them a lot in the past few days. The buff has just completely changed how this team plays. They do tac ops really well. They do missions really well. They're a hyper-aggressive team. In fact, I would say they're the most aggressive elite team in the game right now. Their damage is really high. They do everything well. This team is flawless. The only bad matchups they have, I would say, are Pathfinders and Intercession, which I don't know how they beat Pathfinders, to be fair. But going into Intercession, I think they have play. It's probably still in the favor of the Intercessor player, but they're such a good team right now. The buff to Vanguard so they can do the mission actions just allowed the team to like breathe when they're playing a game. So now they're able to kill while scoring. And it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Intercession still S tier. I mean, what can I say? These guys have been S tier for a while. They're super durable. They're super killy. They're Space Marines. They play like Space Marines in the lore. They're terrifying. And they still are. They got nerfed, and it doesn't even really matter. So nah. I'll put them back in A. I think Breachers have always been A tier. I don't think they've ever been S tier. I think everyone was riding off of their little gimmick of like one-shotting stuff with the grenades. Turn one to get the kill. Most games that I played against Breachers, it was going to be the case. It was going to be somebody group activating with the demo guy and then just yeeting the demo guy up and just throwing a big grenade and not rolling dice and killing like 5 models. And that happened a lot. And I think it really it made people overestimate how strong the team actually is. I think once you eliminate that ability, like once you aren't factoring that in, I think the team's power level drops substantially. And now they can still do it, but they're not getting any dice rerolls, which I don't really think matters all that much. But the DR has substantially hurt them. It probably hurt them the most out of all the DR nerfs. Because they were basically, I'm not going to say they were immune to damage 3 weapons, but they were basically immune. Like, it was pretty much impossible to kill a Breacher with a damage 3 weapon. But now that's not the case. Now they die in 3 hits, and Breacher players are probably not feeling too great. But at the end of the day, they still can do the demo charge bullshit. They can still just cut their way through anywhere on the board. They still are pretty tough for a guard team, and they have shotguns, and that's pretty good. Kroot. So, Farstalker Kinband has been borderline S tier since they got their first substantial buffs, right? Once the team got the equipment changes, once they got an extra operative, and they got, all the other stuff, they became a pretty terrifying team. And I think the only thing that was keeping them out of S tier was actually damage reduction, because they're one of the teams that was affected most by it, probably them and Phobos. Like, most of Kroot weapons are damage 3-4. And when you're going against damage reduction, you can't kill anything. They really struggle into power armor in addition to that. So, like, the Legionnaires matchup was just hell for them. And it's not so scary now. So, now that the damage reduction has been nerfed, there's nothing keeping them out of S tier. They're the best TAC op team in the game. They have great mobility. They have 12 operatives. There's literally no downside to playing the team. So, this is a hard one. I want to put them here, but I think my own bias is putting them there. Okay, so I'm going to put them here, and then I'm going to move them here, but I'm going to explain to you why I think they're here, okay? Before I move them here. So, this team was a menace for probably a good 4 to 5 months. They got buffed in fall, and they were really, really strong, and no one really knew how to deal with them. But at the same time, they were the hardest team in the game to play. And what ended up happening is really good players, or even above average players, would pick them up and perform really well with them. And now what I think you're going to end up seeing is a lot of those players are going to move on to other teams. And I think as you see that, you're going to see less good Starstriders players, and they're going to drop down to here. As far as the team itself, do I think they're an A team? So personally, I really like this team. I've been playing them for a long time, and I recently just switched away from them. And my playstyle for the team has more or less stayed the same. So my playstyle focused around positioning the dog with the assassin with the medic together and just kind of forming a big tight-knit group right there, and just kind of letting everyone else kind of do their own thing and do missions and, you know, try and secure kills. But it's like my main emphasis was on those 3 models, and those models didn't really get touched. It was kind of all the other things. Mainly the support assets got dropped to Ballistic Skill 4, aside from the Archeo-Tech beam, which needed to happen. It was kind of ridiculous there were 3. But I think the main nerf to this team was the damage reduction and the heavy gunner. So the heavy gunner is really bad now. He lost his Relentless, and when he had Relentless, he could pretty consistently murder pretty much any like low wound operative, or if he shot into an elite operative, he could pretty consistently like do 6 to 9 wounds to them. And so that was a big deal. Now he's getting like 2 to 4 hits when he shoots, and it doesn't have any AP, so realistically like maybe 1 or 2 shots sneaks through when you shoot something with the guy. So like on average, he's not even killing a guardsman, and that sucks. It sucks when you're heavy gunner and your gunners can't kill stuff, because that's kind of their point. So that's a huge bummer. The damage reduction really, really affected these guys. It's still pretty good because it's still half damage, and if I remember right, I don't think it's a minimum of 3, but it might have gotten changed to a minimum of 3 also. But the damage reduction is limited to once per turn now, and I'm not saying it didn't need to happen, but I am saying that the team kind of relied on that in order to realistically like kind of get out on the map. So they're still an okay team, but I don't think they're a good team anymore. So that's where they go. These guys. Bang. They didn't get nerfed. Don't even fucking pretend they got nerfed. Okay? Gellerpox players, do you guys realistically fucking care about getting the extra CP? Let's really be honest here. Okay? Do you think that breaks the team? Because I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Okay? These guys have been super, super strong since they came out. They got like a laughable nerf in the first round. They got another laughable nerf in this round. I think they're still probably the best team in the game, if not within the top 3. What more can I say? They're super strong. Enough said. Kasrkin buff. I mean, they were kind of hovering around B tier, and being 8 wounds really bumped him up. It's actually kind of difficult for me to say which was the bigger buff, the 8 wounds or the extra elite points, because I think the elite points, you now have enough elite points to play aggressive with them and not run out, and that's a big deal. So you can compare them to Scions now, whereas previously you couldn't, because Scions were just unequivocally better. But yeah, they're a solid team now. Here's going to be a mega controversial opinion. I don't know if I'm ready to put... I'm going to hold off on these guys. We're going to put these guys in. So these guys are S tier. I'm tired of tier lists saying that they are A tier. They're not A tier. This is an S tier team. There's literally no downside to playing Hand of the Archon. They're really strong. Their grenade needs to get nerfed. Let's just be honest here, guys. I don't want to do this argument of, oh, but you know, Hand of the Archon needs the grenade. It's like they don't need the grenade, man. They have no problem killing elites. They have no problem killing Horde. They have no problem killing anything. They're very good. They're a very tough team. They're hyper mobile. Their tac ops are so easy to score. I've been having a lot of fun with the command point tournament with these guys. I've been playing a lot of IRL games with them. I've been playing a lot of TTS games with this team. They are super powerful. They're super, super powerful. They're good in melee and shooting, and they're durable. Like, there's no downside to playing this team. And they're the only team in the game that makes Harlequin shit themselves. So that alone puts them in S tier. All right, guys. We'll talk about Hierotek Circle. But Austin, they just got buffed. Why are they in B tier? Do you want to know why they're in B tier? I'll tell you why they're in B tier. Because they have some bad matchups still. I've played a lot of games with these guys since the data slate came out. And I've won probably about 50% of my games with these guys. So let me tell you what they're good at, and then I'll tell you why they're in B tier. Okay? They have a lot of burst damage. They have okay durability, I will say. The resurrection mechanic as an opponent is something you need to respect now, but it's not that difficult to play around. And their shooting is pretty damn good. I would say like their shooting was like, it started off when they first came out as like subpar, and then they got buffed to being like all right, and now it's pretty damn good. Like they're above average shooting now, just because of the buff to the Apprentech and the buff to the Despotech. They've got really good shooting now. Why are they B tier, Austin? Okay, well, they're B tier because if you're playing an experienced melee team, like if you're playing against a person who knows what they're doing, playing a melee team. So I'm looking at Hand of the Archon. I'm looking at Assault Intercessors, Legionnaires, or like a true melee team, right? I got my ass handed to me by Gene Stealers, just to give an example. These guys don't really have any way to deal with that. And you could be like, well, no, that's not true. The nanomine it's like, yeah, okay. The nanomine's really good. In fact, it's probably overpowered. I'm not going to disagree with that. But it can't be everywhere at once. And a lot of these teams have like little tricks. So like example of Gene Stealers is like, dude, you lose out on initiative, and all they do is lurk with the Gene Stealer. I think it's called lurk, where they get a free move before activating. You know what I mean? And it's like a lot of these other factions have little ways to get around stuff. And once something gets in melee with you, like the team just collapses. Like, because you just don't have a way to fight like an actual melee operative with this team. Like, yeah, the Immortals are like, 3-4, and you give them the blades, and they go to lethal 5, and the Despotech's BS2 also. So it's like he can kind of fight his way through some stuff, but it's like he's not beating an Assault Intercessor in melee. That guy's gonna look at him, and if you guys remember the artwork, I think from like Kill Team 2019, where it's like you see the Space Wolf Reaver holding the Tau Pathfinders gun and just being like, what are you doing? What are you doing in melee, Tau? Like, that's how a melee operative acts when he's in melee with a Hierotek Circle model. Because it's just like, what? You're going to fight me with a lethal 5, 3-4 weapon? Come on. Come on. You're not doing anything with that gun. You know what I mean? I think they're perfectly capable of winning games. I really enjoy playing them. I'm going to be playing them again once this GT's done. But I do not think they're a good team. A lot of people are putting them in A tier right now, and I think they're just looking at things on paper and not really, having time to play with the team. because I think that once more people play with the team, they're kind of realizes like you have like one thing you're good at with this team, and this team is fucking good at it, and that is alpha striking. If you get first activation, you just zoom your Cryptek halfway across the board and just nuke somebody from an angle and get a huge blast hit and possibly even win the game with one shot. They're really, really good at that. But the problem is like gimmick teams are gimmick teams. You know what I mean? Like, if that's all your team has, you're going to really struggle in matchups where, you know, you're not able to get that, or maybe it's not effective versus your opponent. So that's why I don't think that they're better than a B team. I don't think they're a bad team anymore. I think they're a respectable team that you can't just look at and go, okay, well, but I don't think they're a good team. All right, moving on. This is the only team I'm putting in C tier. I feel like I need to make a public statement here. Okay? This is not a good team. Exaction Squad is not a good team. Okay? I'm not going to talk too much on this team because I feel like all of the criticisms that people have on this team, like, people are aware of. They're extremely fragile. No, shield operatives are not good operatives. Their weapon skill is very reliant on dice because they're weapon skill 4. They're 7 wounds, which more often than not, if you get in melee with something, you still will probably end up dying if it charges you, even if you're fighting first. There's just so many issues to why this team is not a good team. Their gunners are terrible. Their basic like specialist operatives are not really good. They've got really awkward to use abilities that like just end up being more effort to use than they're worth, and like what you'll end up doing is you'll just end up using them as shotgun guys instead of really using their ability all that much. Their comms is really good. Their leader's really good. The dog is something you'll literally never take outside of like narrative games if you want to take them. Their tac ops are oddly really good, but they're bad at scoring them. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I don't think there's a single positive thing I can say about this team, which is really weird because they have damage 4 shotguns. So it's weird to say that they don't do damage, but here's why I say that, right? There's no like, you look at the other teams in the game that rely on shotguns, okay? And why the notion of a shotgun being a good weapon is something that's in someone's head. Well, those guns are all secondary guns. You know, like, let's look at Wyrmblade, for example, because they're the ones that come to mind as the original shotgun guys. Well, you know, they have their gunners, they have their heavy gunners, and they have their agents. And then after all that's said and done, then they have the shotguns, right? So it's like, you're not really expecting your shotguns to do that much damage, right, when you shoot them. So it always comes off as kind of a surprise when you kill something with the shotguns. It's the same thing with breachers, right? You've got your gunners, you've got your melee operatives, you've got your grenadier, you know, you've got all these other sources of damage. And then your shotguns kick in, and then there's like, oh yeah, that's right, I can do something with this guy and actually do some damage. Well, with these guys, like, there's nothing else on the team except for damage 4 shotguns. There's nothing else is going to kill anything. Like, the shield guys, they're just melee shotguns. They're just damage 4 melee guys. So it's like, when that's the only thing you have on your team, you're not going to kill anything. And especially at range, like, your only ranged operative who is even worth firing is your sniper and sometimes your grenadier or your grenade launcher. The grenade launcher is terrible too. Like, it's ballistic skill 4 with no access to rerolls and just AP 1. You don't have frag grenades, and you're trading that for getting damage 6 on your critical hits instead of damage 5. It's just bad. It's real bad. Yeah, this team needs help. They need 8 wounds. They need extra BS on their sniper. They need to make the gunners more attractive because they just don't do anything. The sniper needs full crit damage. The pistol guy needs full crit damage, and the shield guys need weapon skill 3. If all of those get implemented into the game for this team, they will become an A tier team. They wouldn't even become an S tier team if every single one of those changes happened. That's how bad of a team they are right now. They are Hierotek level bad. And I'm talking like pre-buff Hierotek level bad. I think if people are consistently winning games with this team, I think you have to realistically look at what your meta is consisting of right now. I think they do perform better in Into the Dark. I will say you can win games with them in Into the Dark, but I mean, you have to look at like the quality of players you're playing against. Are you playing against a casual group, or is your group like really try hard competitive? Are they going to GTs a lot, or are you guys mostly just kind of playing among your friends? You know, you have to be honest with yourself when you look at that. And you also have to look at the teams that people are playing. You know, I think they're a very weak team. I don't think it's impossible for them to win games, but I think, you know, honestly, we just gotta admit that they're not a good team, and that's okay. It's okay to like a bad team. Like it's not a bad thing, right? All right, so we finished this. This is probably a very controversial tier list because I think it's very different from how you'll see other tier lists on YouTube when it comes to kill team. First of all, my S tier is really top heavy, and I would say my A and B tier are kind of split, whereas I think most of the other tier lists, you're looking at like most of the operatives being in like A, a couple being in B, and then like 3 being in S. I think there's so many really strong teams in the game that I don't think there's a single team that I put in S tier that I wouldn't put in S tier. Just because all of these teams they just don't really have bad matchups. Like even Phobos's bad matchups are still winnable because they do missions so well that they can kind of just play around their opponent without really having to commit to an engage, or they can play so hyper aggressive that they can do so much damage in the first turn and suffocate their opponents so much that their opponent's never able to recover. These are all just really good teams. So now we're going to go into the prediction phase. Where do I see these teams? So we don't know anything about these teams because neither of these teams had compendium teams. They're both brand new to 40k. They're both brand new to kill team. But we can kind of speculate, right? So I want to talk about Votann first. So Votann in 40k is toughness 4. They're ballistic skill and weapon skill 3, and they have void armor, and they have really, really good shooting. So I think there's some kind of things that we can kind of assume that once they get transferred into kill team that they're probably going to have. So they're probably going to have really good shooting. In 40k, their shooting's about on par with Tau. Meaning their shooting is probably some of the best in the game, right? Their damage is really high with their weapons. They have really high AP with their weapons, and they all have like this lore thing called Hunter Tech, which is probably going to mean that they're like pretty mobile with their guns. Like they're probably not going to get slowed down by heavy or anything. They're wearing void armor, which lore-wise is supposed to be the equivalent of the Navy armor. Navy breachers are wearing void armor. They're just different armor variants because, you know, these guys are human, these guys are dwarves, but lore-wise is the same armor. It's got the same protective countermeasures and everything. So I think they're going to be pretty durable. They're slow. So in 40k, they have a reduced advance speed, which is like, you could think of advance as like similar to a dash in kill team. So they're probably not going to be a mobile team. It can go either way as to say whether they're going to be a slow team, because orc infantry are slow in 40k, and slow being movement 5, whereas Necrons are also slow, but orcs and kill team are not slow, but Necrons are. So it could go either way on whether or not these guys are like slow or just not fast, but I think we can all assume that they're not going to be a fast team. Their shooting is going to be really hard hitting. My guess, just based off of the lore of this kill team, because they're called the Salvager team, I'm guessing they're probably going to be recon and security, because that makes sense for a team that's going in and trying to secure tech and get out alive. So I think they're going to be a recon security team. I think they're going to be able to pull off security really well. It remains to be seen whether they can do recon well, but I think they might have what it takes, because they've got a lot of really good shooting, and it looks like they've got good mobility with the jump pack guy. They're going to be really tough. I would assume that they're going to be probably 9 to 10 wounds, 4 up save, ballistic skill 3, probably damage 4 or 5 weapons, possibly even with P1. Maybe that ends up being a strat. Their special weapons are going to all be really good. Their ion blasters are all going to be really good. Their melee is probably going to be pretty respectable. I would assume 4 attacks with their melee operatives. But those guys are going to have power weapons, and they're going to hit really hard. They might have a judgment token mechanic, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have one, just because the lore of the team is like they're a secondary combat team. Like, their job is to be securing tech, not like going out and killing guys. So I don't know if they're necessarily going to have the judgment token mechanic. But I think, based on assumptions, I would put them in A tier, possibly even S tier. Just based off of the fact that they're going to probably be comparable to Tau as for shooting. But I think the main thing that's going to separate these two is Tau can ignore obscuring. I don't think these guys do. They have a guy who's got like an Auspex thing, so they could end up being like Intercession with the Auspex, so the guy Auspex somebody and then everyone on the team can shoot that dude without being obscured. I could see that being a thing, but I don't think they're going to have team-wide ignore obscuring like Tau is able to do. So I don't think I would feel comfortable putting him in S tier, because I just don't know that much about the team. But I think just based on assumptions of what their stat lines are in 40k, that I can't see them being below A tier. I just can't see it. So we'll talk about the Beastmen now. Here's why I'm putting them in B tier. And we could have another controversial opinion here. But they don't have any shooting guys. I want to be honest with you. They don't have any shooting guys. And that's a problem. That's a real big problem in Kill Team. So you could go, but Austin, you have Gellerpox up all the way in S tier, and it's like, yes, they're not a shooting team. Okay. But Gellerpox has really, really hard to kill guys with the Nightmare Hulks. You have to dedicate and kill those guys, or else you will lose the game. These Beastmen don't have that. We don't know anything about the team, but we do know that they don't have shooting. They have like a couple guys with like auto pistols, and they have like a grenade guy, and that's like it. Like, it doesn't even look like they have gunners. I think we can, judging by the Warp Coven profile with the Zangors, they're probably going to be between 8 and 9 wounds, probably, depending on the operative. They're probably going to have a 5 up save. I don't see this team having any invulns or having like team-wide invulns like the Zangors do, because they're not blessed by Tzeentch. They've got some melee operatives. I think we can assume that they're going to be pretty solid in melee, but I want you to look at what B tier is right now. And B tier is They have Blooded. And I think this team's going to be a mid-range operative version of Blooded, in the sense that there's, instead of like being an Imperial Guard squad but melee, these guys are going to be like Kasrkin but melee. And when you just don't have that much shooting, it really limits your options of what you can end up getting done. We don't know anything about these teams, so I just look, before you crucify me, I understand we know nothing about these guys. Okay? I could be completely wrong about both these teams. Okay? The Salvagers could end up being in shit tier, and the stupid goat guys could end up being like the best team in the game. Okay, fair enough. But just going off assumptions, going off what I'm looking at the models, I don't see how this team ends up being S tier. Into the Dark, yeah, maybe there's a different argument, but I'm not doing an Into the Dark tier list. We're doing open play. So that's where I'm going to put them. So that's it. That's my tier list. I've probably pissed a lot of people off with this tier list. That wasn't my intent. I'm not some malicious edgelord who just really thrives off other people getting angry at him. But I wanted to throw out a tier list because I think my opinions are different than other people. And I thought it could spark some interesting conversation, and I hope that you guys can understand at least where I'm coming from and at least my point of view, because I think we've kind of hit like a little bit of an echo chamber with Kill Team, because there's a lot of people who are following the content creators on Kill Team, or following Discord groups, or following Goonhammer, or whatever thing you get your 40k or Kill Team content from. I think a lot of people are just looking at that and going, okay, well, this is set in stone. This is how it is. And it's not. Okay? Those are people's opinions. And I think having some different opinions can give you some different perspective on stuff and open up for more discourse. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't usually like to do this all that often. I like to just focus on mostly games. But there's just sometimes when I just want to kind of sit down and talk about something in the game. Because I love Kill Team, and I just can't fucking stop thinking about this game. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll be doing some more Phobos games tomorrow, and then I'll talk to you guys about my GT over the weekend. So, alright guys, bye-bye.